conceived and chosen. What we celebrate today is that Mary, at the moment she was conceived in her mother's womb, Anne, Joachim and Anne are parents, so in Anne's womb, when she was conceived, that she was preserved from original sin. Some people will say, well, how come, so you're saying that Mary didn't need a Savior? It's like, no. That because God is outside of time, because God's salvation, Christ's death on the cross, transcends time, that Mary received a singular participation, a singular reception of the grace of the cross at the time she was conceived. So she was given that gift. Does that kind of make sense? So it wasn't anything she did. It was what God did, and He gave her a gift. And we say, well, why would He do that? That doesn't really make sense. And it's like, well, from our first reading we heard today, it makes a little sense because she's not the only one that was born this way. That Adam and Eve were also born free of the stain of original sin. But they, in their freedom, chose against God. Mary is born free of sin, and she chose to submit herself to God's plan. Well, why doesn't God do that for all of us? Wouldn't that be easier? Somehow, this way is better. Better for you and I to experience the transforming grace of God in our life. To know where we were and to see where we are and to have hope of where we want to be in the future. So conceived and chosen. That God conceived this plan in His mind from the moment we hear the fall. The moment after the fall happened, we hear what they call the proto-evangelion. The good news. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He, the evil one, he was talking to the devil at this point. You, that offspring, Jesus, will strike at your head. He will squash you while you try to nip at his heel. And so ever since then, the devil has tried to nip at our heels to trip us. He doesn't push us, he trips us, right? But Christ comes and stomps on him. There's a powerful moment in the movie The Passion of the Christ when Jesus is in the garden and he literally steps on the serpent's head. And so God conceived this plan. He did choose Mary, but then Mary had a choice. Mary chose to trust. Mary chose to respond. Mary was in a less than ideal situation. She's not married yet. Mary had her own plans of happiness. But she submitted and said yes to God. Do you know that in this country, there are 2.2 million people incarcerated? It's 0.91% of the population. So it's approximately like 1 in 100. So for the 20,000 people on this campus, statistically, there'd be like 200. It'd be like a church this full. Would be like people who are in jail in a different world. And there's another like 4.5 million who are on parole or probation, meaning that they have been in the system, that they've made choices that have consequences. And you look at some of those situations and you say, man, some people are really born in just unfortunate places with the odds stacked against them. You know, it seems like they didn't really have a choice. They were destined for a life of crime. Really? Every one of us has a choice. God gives us exactly what we need, every spiritual blessing in the heavens. But the choice and the response is up to us. How many of us know people who maybe are in a really good, fortunate scenario, and then they make choices that kind of sabotage it all? But then you have other people who come from less than ideal circumstances, and the choices they make, the response they make to the opportunities they have, take them to amazing places. Every one of us has been given incredible gifts and graces. I mean, even just to be here on this campus puts you ahead of a large segment of the population. We have been blessed. Mary was blessed, but she responded by saying yes to God's plan, and that's what makes her so awesome, so exalted. It's like I want to be like her and say yes to God's will. I want to cooperate with His plan. I want to choose Him, and probably the more difficult path of the one who chose me. The great St. John Paul II, when he was 9 years old, his mother passed away. By the time he was 20, he had lost his mother, his brother, and his father. All the three closest people to him all died, and he wasn't even able to be there. He was away, they were away, he wasn't there. He endured Nazi occupation. He ended up facing and living in communism. He had every opportunity to make excuses. He had every reason to fail. But because he had the courage and humility to continue to turn to God in everything, God was able to do just an incredible, beautiful work in his life. What am I getting at here? Yesterday we celebrate Mary, that Mary was chosen as part of God's plan. From the moment the fall happened, God had this plan and hoped and waited for Mary to say yes. And Mary responded. Mary chose him, whereas Adam and Eve chose themselves. You and I have an opportunity to participate in God's plan. And it does not matter whether the cards are stacked in our favor or against us, because God has given us everything we need. He's given us every blessing in the heavens, that He's chosen us. And we have the opportunity in how we respond every moment to make the best of that. So here's an opportunity coming up in a few weeks, in a week, hopefully less, is we have a month of break, right? And so in that month of break, what will I choose to do? There's opportunity. How will I choose the Lord? For some of us, it's going home to situations that maybe for some of us, maybe it's easier to be faithful at home. For a lot of people, it might be easier to be faithful here, maybe. And so how do I prepare myself? How do I continue to choose the Lord even in circumstances that are less than ideal? Because God knows where we're going to be. God knows exactly the resources He's given us. And He waits for us to, like Mary, to just submit to Him, to just receive His gifts and blessings, to trust in Him, and to surrender, saying, "Let it be done to me according to your word." God has conceived His perfect plan for each one of us individually. He's chosen us, and He gives us the freedom and grace and blessing to choose whether we respond to Him each day.